this is a fantastic documentary, great documentary, and covers a part of America and part of the healthcare system, if you will, in a way we don't usually see, which makes it very important. And congratulations on the Founders Prize at the Traverse City Film Festival.
Oh, thank you.
That's a great honor. And I mean, when you first approached remote area medical, you were posted as volunteers before you even thought of making the documentary. As volunteers, what stunned you most about what you saw?
Are we looking at you? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When Jeff and I volunteered, it was at a clinic in Pikesville, Kentucky, and we have no medical experience, so we were predominantly in registration. And I think for me, one of the most shocking things was just really starting to understand how much your health affects your entire life. I mean, obviously I understood that, if you're in physical pain, if you're uncomfortable, that's not easy. That can change your day-to-day life, but I didn't really make the connection between that and, if I'm in pain or if I don't have glasses, I can't get a job, and then I can't feed my family, and then, it changes how you feel about yourself, your pride, your sense of self-worth, and the depth of that consequence didn't strike me until really talking to people at this clinic.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say the same?
Yeah, pretty much. It was really, the stories that we heard, and just how many of them there were that were kind of very similar in a lot of ways. People having fallen on hard times because of health issues, and then those health issues preventing them from climbing back out and getting back to work, putting their lives back in order. It just seemed that so many folks were stuck in a bit of a spiral just because they couldn't get basic care, and that just didn't seem right.
Yeah, it definitely didn't seem right. Yeah, and this movie focuses really on the Appalachian community as well, and which has been sort of viewed through different eyes, through biased eyes perhaps. Was there anything that surprised you about the people who live there?
We'd actually volunteered in Appalachia, pretty close to where we ended up filming, and that's part of how we made the choice to continue to film in that community. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd say I was surprised. I didn't have a lot of experience. I'd never visited the region before, and we just fell in love with it. I mean, first of all, it's incredibly beautiful. When people ask kind of blunt questions like, well, why don't they just move? It really makes a case for itself that, we are tied to place and family, and in these people's cases, the mountains, and it's not as easy as all that. And then on top of that, I do think there's a culture of generosity and kindness, and we absolutely experienced that. And, we also felt when we were volunteering that people talked a lot about feeling overlooked by the rest of American society, even more than other rural communities, even more than those who don't have access because they can't afford it. This sense of nobody thinks about our lives here, and we really wanted to go and shed light on that, even though in some ways the healthcare situation applies to a lot of different communities. The specificity of what it's like to live in Appalachia was something we wanted to focus on as well.
Great. And then we see Stan Brock, who created Remote Area Miracle, here and there. Was he accessible through most of the production?
Yeah, no, we have a lot more footage with Stan that we could have used in the film. But at a certain point, we realized that the really interesting thing that we were capturing was the stories of the patients. And so Stan is amazing, and what his organization does is absolutely fantastic. But Stan can go on 60 Minutes and talk about his organization. He can go on ABC News and talk about what Remote Area Medical is up to. But Val and Glenn and Johnny don't have a forum to explain what life is like in Mountain City, Tennessee, and Rogersville, Virginia, and the struggles that they faced. And so at a certain point, it became clear that we needed to make sure that was what we were really highlighting.
Yeah. I mean, it's very focused on the people more than politics, which is fascinating. I think makes it doubly important as a documentary. Was it ever hard, though, to leave politics out of the documentary at all?
I don't know if it was difficult, and we kind of knew going in because the conversation at that time, we started developing this around 2011, that's when we volunteered, and then shot it in 2012. So it was before ACA went into effect. The conversation was constantly in the news, but specifically in terms of politics. Like, who should you vote for? Who's doing a better job with their plan, the Democrats or the Republicans? It seemed so divorced from humanity. Like, there was no understanding of what it actually is like to live without healthcare, which is why I was so shocked when we went and volunteered. Like, why should that be shocking? Why don't we see what it's actually like? And so in a way, we knew that going in. But what's been hard is on the tail end when people sometimes say to us in Q&As or in reviews, why don't you explain how the insurance system works? Why don't you provide more context? And I just have to say, I wish we were there as a country, but we don't agree as a country that everybody deserves free healthcare. So we wanted to really strip that down and go to something more basic, go to something that doesn't, give people this knee-jerk reaction. Once you get into politics, it pushes a lot of buttons, and just say, this is what this looks like. Now that you see that, do you really feel that we can continue to let people live this way?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of scenes in the movie that are hard to watch, and I mean, the teeth pulling scene and stuff like that. And it's just kind of a shock to see that, a lot of people haven't even had healthcare for 10 years, and it's just... and plus people have to get street drugs to deal with the pain also. And you can't really fault them for that when, you don't have regular anesthesia. And, the amount of people we see waiting to get inside is staggering. Mm-hmm. It makes for a very tense experience because you see these people and you want them to get inside and get help. And what was it like filming that?
It was really, really challenging. Especially that moment where somebody knows they're not going to get a ticket, and once you've been there for a few hours and you hear the numbers being called out and you see where you're on the parking lot, that day is not going to be for you. It's heartbreaking. In the film we have the woman who essentially kind of cuts in line so she can get a ticket for herself and her mother because they can't come back, and I have a lot of sympathy for her because I might do that. I have a lot of sympathy for the two people who might have gotten those tickets and who didn't get to go in because somebody cut the line. I have sympathy for the organizers because they have to try and handle the situation as best they can. And they do eventually just have to, as happens in the film, kind of say, look, we're sorry, we can't do anything more for you today. We're giving all we have. And it's really, really hard to watch. It's hard to be a remote area medical and know that you can't service all the needs. But we liked focusing on remote area medical also because they managed to do so much, even though they do leave some things on the table.
Yeah. No, that scene where that the woman is begging for the tickets is hard to watch because it's like you want to help her out, but at the same time you really can't, and it's sort of like you almost don't blame her for sort of cutting her way into the line, even though it's not really. I mean, the dichotomy of that, the yin and yang of that is fascinating because on one hand she's cheating her way in, but you can't really blame her for that. You can't really blame her for that at all.
Well, no one should have to be reduced to that situation. I mean, I think what patients say all the time is, they treated me with such dignity. The doctors treated me with such dignity. I didn't feel like I was being given charity in that way so much as just seeing a doctor perhaps in a very, very unusual situation with a lot of other people around. But unfortunately, there's no way to take away how it feels to have to sleep in a parking lot for 3 nights to get what you know that you deserve. Just getting your blood pressure checked and your teeth pulled. So I think that's the hardest thing to watch, that it does sort of take a lot out of you. People talk about, the swallowing your pride to accept charity in that way, and you probably feel it nowhere more than in those nights in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, asking for help in any sort of situation, be it one like that or anywhere else, it's always hard. Yeah, because people don't want to be seen as begging, but at the same time, we do what we can to survive. Yeah. And there was a quote, I was looking in the production notes, you had a quote by Lork Dardine, I probably didn't get the name right.
Luc Dardine.
Like Luc Dardine, kindness, certainly more than evil, scares people. Kindness isn't rational, which is interesting because there's a lot of truth to that, And why do you think something like RAM scares people?
Because I think you look at remote area medical and you just sort of figure, well, what's the catch? What's going on behind the scenes? What don't we know about this? What are they trying to do? But it really is just as simple as it sounds. They just go into a place and for as little money as they possibly can, they give out as much care as they possibly can give. And it's amazing. There's no bureaucracy. There's no red tape. There's no corporate sponsorship. There's no big dollar business donations. It is just a small organization that has just figured out a way through through smarts and canniness and to give as much as they possibly can. Like Stan Brock is the real deal. He lives in the headquarters. He takes no salary from the organization. He can't even vote in the United States because he's a British citizen. So, he just does this because he saw a need and wants to fill it. And it's, we were very moved by that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, to learn that he doesn't take a salary for it or anything. I mean, do the doctors, they don't take a salary for it, either, do they? No.
No, they have a year-round staff. It's very small. I think it's 13 people now. And when we started, it was something like 7, and they worked out of this dilapidated, condemned school building that had shut down in the 70s in Knoxville. And again, Stan slept at this place because they couldn't afford to have a security person be there all the time with, you know, the medical equipment that was around.
Right.
So the situation's improved. They have gotten to hire a development person. They have a slightly higher budget, and a building that, you know, doesn't cause them health problems also. But they still just make so much out of so little that it, you know, when we have people in audiences that have organizational experience come from nonprofits, they're completely dumbfounded at how they're able to do that with so little. And it's because all the doctors volunteer. It's because people fly themselves out, because everybody is donating or volunteering.
Mm-hmm. And it's great. You see the doctors at one point having dinner, and they talk about, you know, for them it's doing what they love and not just work. And I love watching that because I think that's, you know, it kind of reminds them why they get into medicine in the first place. You know, and you know, here they don't have to deal with the bureaucracy. They can just help people out, which is great. And then, how much did the final cut of this documentary differ from how it started for you? I imagine you had sort of a goal in mind and that it might have changed throughout.
I guess the primary difference is that when we went in, for one thing, we weren't entirely sure about we knew we wanted to focus on the patients, but we thought there might be a slightly different balance. And as we moved through the cut, we realized more and more that yes, we wanted a few voices of doctors and volunteers about that experience, but really it should be through the eyes of the patients. And then the other way in which it was different than we expected is we thought it was going to be an entirely verite documentary. And we did a lot of those interviews that you see that make up the, you know, really the structural backbone of the film now, mostly as a way of getting to know people, of, you know, getting comfortable with them, you're building a relationship, and we thought that it would be this kind of background work as opposed to be appearing in the film. And for one thing, I just think people told us such incredible things, and there's this storytelling history in Appalachia that we kept seeing where everyone was incredibly articulate. And also, it comes back to that idea that these people feel like they never get to tell their story or have their voice heard, so how can we take that away? And it ended up being a really important part of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the stories are fascinating because it's just, you know, these are people who are trying to get by and they have a long history and they don't want to abandon that history, and I think that's smart because, you know, that's, you know, we learn from history. That's the only way we sort of evolve in a sense. And the stories that you came across, I mean, was there anything that you wanted to put in this documentary that you weren't able to for one reason or another?
No, I don't really think so. You know, we did go back and shoot a little bit more after the clinic, just because we sort of realized in the edit who the folks that were really emerging as integral figures to the film were, and so we wanted to make sure that we had a little bit more time with them. But you know, I think we managed to do kind of what we set out to do.
Great. And have you managed to keep in touch with any of the people, be it the patients or the doctors, since the documentary?
Well, we stay very much in touch with the organization and a lot of the volunteers that we got to know. With the patients, it's really difficult. I mean, the same things that make access an issue for them continue to make access an issue for them outside of healthcare. So, you know, we talked to Val. She has decently steady work. There's actually a great happy ending for her in the sense that you know, when the film ended, she wasn't able to get all of the dentures that she wanted. She was just able to have some teeth out. And when we premiered the film at the Full Frame Film Festival in 2013, there was an ABC News story, and seeing that, somebody called in and just anonymously donated the rest of the money for her to have her teeth fixed. So she's doing well. We were a little bit in touch with Rhonda, the woman who you see get the chest x-ray, and she actually was able to get follow-up care and did not have cancer. Which is great. But, you know, for every Val and Rhonda, there are many more people who their phone service gets shut off, or they don't have internet access in their town, or people like Johnny who just travel constantly for work. So we do the best we can, but it's hard. Yeah,
it is hard. And what were like the biggest challenges for you in making this documentary?
I think the biggest challenge was probably one of production logistics, just figuring out how you how you break down this massive speedway with several thousand people coming through over the course of the weekend. How do you actually film that thing? And so we had 7 camera crews running almost continuously throughout the course of the event. We had people stationed in different areas. We had a system whereby Farihah was communicating with all the different teams, making sure she knew where everybody was, who they were filming with, and keeping an eye out for opportunities. Such as when Johnny says, "Hey, why don't you come home with me? I'm going to go get some drugs to take care of my pain. You should see this." Making sure that we could have somebody actually go with Johnny in the car, be at his house to film, that kind of thing. That setting up that system was it took some time. And it worked a lot better than we thought it would. It was kind of crazy in a way. We had a crew of 20 people running around over the course of that time, and it was, it's my second film and her first film. So.
Yeah, and it was it was physically and emotionally exhausting. We had it was a short shoot compared to many, many documentary films, which just go on for, you might follow a family for 10 years, but every single one of our days was 20 hours because we'd go to the clinic all day and then follow people home, follow doctors home. But I think while shooting, you didn't necessarily feel that because you just think, if that's hard for me to hear, how do you think it is for that person to live that?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, the shot of the speedway, just as everybody's setting up, it's like you look at, it's like, this is gonna fill up quick. Yeah. And the scene with the guy with the drugs, it's I think it's a very important scene, just in that what people have to do to get by, and it's like, in any other case you would say you shouldn't do that, but when you're in that position, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, who are we to judge any of the things that we see in a certain way?
Absolutely, exactly.